through, firing up the weed. Jesus, crazy what the world coming to. I'm here to live it, make music. But y'all is just hanging on a gimmick, huh? Wait a minute, man. Don't get me confused with none of these newbie ass rappers, man. I know the game be feeling fucked up, but I've been making beats since '95, regardless if I had the right promotion or not. Word up. Hey yo, I ain't always humble, I ain't always intense. I've had my good and bad days like anyone else, more or less. Probably a lot more than less, or the more of it in a sense. Feel blessed, so I just move forward through the stress. But don't smoke stress, smoke the bombest weed you ever seen. Cannabis club category, certified Cali green. Type of bomb that I keep up in my sack. They give a lot of cats anxiety attacks. There's no denying the facts, but enough about the weed though. I keep it on a need to know basis. It's time for me to cut to the chase quick. So download this free LP, spread it to your friends and family, even to the little haters mad at me. I got 2 official LPs coming after these. So far I'm grateful for the love that's coming back to me. Truly appreciate the support, especially my peeps that had my back when I was going in and out of court. But of course a shout out to all my people who kept the game alive instead of killing it, selling out with weak flows. My crew, anyone that gave an honest point of view. Much respect besides me, man. I do this shit for you, yeah, for you.
Hello, folks. Welcome. Happy Wednesday, I believe. Welcome to Wartime Optimism, number 30-something. 2? Gonna go with 2. How's everybody doing today? I hope well. I hope they're being safe, staying positive, having a good one, staying productive. Today, we're gonna keep painting, but we're not gonna keep painting on the image that we were painting yesterday. I did a little bit of work on it, and then I kind of made a realization, and then I had an idea for something else to do. That's still painting, but still me trying to figure out a way to do this that works better for me, or that kind of starts clicking for me, because I keep kind of hitting this point that's not working, and I have an idea, and we're gonna test it today. So that is the plan. Milan, what's going on, man? Good to see you. Luca, good to see you as well. Thank you guys for being here. Let's pull up the screen. This is where this one's at. I have mixed feelings of where it's at. And this is what I kind of realized. I spent like 40 minutes continuing to paint on this. And we were at, take a look at where we're at as of the end of yesterday. As of the end of yesterday, we were here. This is the original image. We dropped in the sky. We kind of started painting some things. We got to about this point. Kind of kept refining things, color, clarity, etc. I don't hate it. I kind of like the colors. I kind of like this desaturated blue and green mixing with the desaturated kind of orange and a bit of reds in the building. I added kind of like more of a structure to this guy that seems to kind of fit the style, this kind of ramshackle tower with this weird exoskeleton on it. Nothing amazing from a design sense, but it feels fitting. But I got to this point, and it feels like the next thing to do on this image is to start maybe like refining some details, do a better job with the clouds, maybe do some stuff with the foreground. I put a little dude-ish guy down here, which you may or may not be able to see, depending on how that's cropped. It feels like the next step in this is to kind of take it to completion, and I don't see what the end should be. And I feel like this is something in every image that I make, you kind of hit that point. You have the idea initially, you work out a concept, whether in 2D or, looking around for a cool camera and everything else. And then you're like, okay, this could be cool. And then you start thinking that maybe it's not. You start playing with lighting, tweaking little things. And then at some point, well before the end, while you're kind of working out those major parts of the image, I feel like you get to a point where it's like, okay, I see something that's the end result that I'm excited for. Right? You feel like, okay, now it's time to go down that slope of we're going to start finishing the image, right? I have the idea. I can see. I'm excited. I have a pretty clear idea of where I want this to end. Let's continue forward. And this one feels like we're at the point where we're going to start those types of changes. But I'm not that excited right now. I feel like I missed something. I'm not sure if it's a compositional issue, color issue, lighting issue. Could be all of those things. Could be a little bit of each of them. I'm just not sure, but I feel like I should be finishing this image. And that kind of like certainty of like, okay, something's cool's here. It's a matter of just bringing it out. I feel like we kind of missed that. And it happened on the last one, right? And I had to kind of restart to kind of figure that out and move forward. And it didn't happen in the first 2 times, which I think is why I keep running into it, because I kind of got this expectation of like, okay, like with the farm image that we painted, 2 weeks ago now, something like that. When I took it in to do a paint over, I had an idea of what I was going to paint, and I just started painting it, and it came out well, and I was happy. Easy peasy, zero conflict. When we tried that process again with the Venice image, before I even started in 3D, I had a pretty clear idea of the overall kind of tonality and feel that I was going for. We roughed it out in 3D, we kind of got the lighting to kind of get there, and then we re-emphasized that in 2D, moved smoothly forward. In these last 2 images, I don't feel like I've had a good idea of what I wanted the image to be. And I think that that's something that I usually find typically within my process. I usually find that in 3D, right? Where, okay, let's change some lighting. Maybe we need to add an element. Maybe we need to remove it, etc. Or I do it in 2D with like a paint over mindset of let's be messy, but let's get this to work. And I feel like something switched in my brain to like, okay, we're going to paint this image and the painting's going to be a final. And maybe part of it's the pressure of doing this live. Part of it's just me not being familiar with this workflow without much experience in it. I get into 2D to paint, and I feel like I need to move it forward. And I kind of ignore, because there are still things to do, I ignore kind of those major paint over type questions, which is, let's get this to where we can see an end result and then worry about painting it. I have a speculation that that's a problem. Now, I'm not sure how to fix it. As far as I don't know should this just be even rougher when I start? I don't know. I really don't. But I have an idea. I feel like I went too far starting to like figure out little things like the little dude here and this, like those aren't major things in this image. They're important but not major, and I kind of skipped, I think, the major things. So because we've gotten this to a point, I feel like I can't look at this with a blank slate anymore. So we are going to finish this image, but we're not going to finish it today. I think what we're going to do, the idea that I have, is that we're going to go to the third one of these sketches that I made, which I really like this composition. I like that there's already more of a foreground, midground, background. I think we could use some more stuff back there. We're going to take this, and we are going to try to work very roughly in a paint overlay sense, but we're also going to try to I'm going to try and find a place where I'm like, okay, I see what the final is now, because I could see a couple different directions to take this. And I think that the first step has to be finding which direction to pursue, not moving into quote unquote painting. That's my idea. Should we watch the 3D for this? We'll watch a little bit of the 3D for this. I glanced at this morning as well, and this I think is interesting. Claudio, Wolfie, what is going on? Welcome. Thank you guys for being here. Let's quickly, so this video, I guess I could just put it here. Let's pause it for oopsie daisies. Pause that for a moment so that I can actually see, and this way we don't, no, I already have it set up for the other one. Let's just do that. This is 25-30 minutes of 3D that's been shortened down to 10 minutes, and we're not going to watch all 10 minutes today because I realized something whilst just kind of like quickly making sure that this video wasn't corrupted. So let's watch from, again, we're just starting with like that same blank empty kit right at the beginning. And like 3 minutes into this, I have this image, 3 minutes into the video, so 10 minutes into working, I basically have this image where it finishes. So I kind of pick a building that kind of matches the sketch, kind of try to place it inside of like the 2D image plane where I feel like it should be, and like relative scale and all of that. Get the horizon kind of lined up to something cool, and then quickly rough out some geometry for just these rocks. Again, using the same rock texture that I used for the mountains, and just kind of trying to get everything in the frame roughly in the right location. And using like the same stupid, super duper simple kind of terrain block-in techniques that, you know, at some point I should probably get better at this, but it's so quick and easy, especially for what I'm trying to accomplish right now, which is getting better at this painting stuff. So nothing new here. But yeah, we're a minute in, this is 30 minutes shortened down to 10. So every 20 seconds of this is like a minute, roughly speaking. So we're like 5 minutes into this at this point. And the rest comes together pretty quickly, another minute and a half, and it's really close. And so we're just going to watch that. After that, it's just noodling. I shouldn't have done it. I either shouldn't have done it, I think, or I should have done more, but that's not the point for today. But just to give you guys an idea of how I'm getting these things together in 3D, we'll let it play for another minute or so. Milan, I searched for Joseph Zbukvic. You told me how to say it last time, and I'm still messing up. Zbukvic. The man has a great style of painting. Check out Jeremy Mann if you haven't already. He has a similar style, but a bit more abstract. Ooh, I like the sound of that, and I will look that up. Absolutely. But yeah, I'm really digging his sense of color and tone and value is just awesome. Okay, so we're coming up. I'm going to hit render here in like a second, and then we're going to stop. Like basically the first time I hit render was probably enough, unless I was going to go further into like figuring out a style. And I think that this is where I need to get better at this process that I'm trying to not develop, because that makes it sound like I've come up with this process, which could not be further from the truth. That I guess I'm trying to make my own or work for what the result that I'm trying to get. But yeah, I mean, this guy, something skipped there. I put in a rock or two in the back, so maybe it was a little bit more than 10 minutes to get here. But this is the first time we press render, and basically at this point, as soon as this pops up, I don't change much, even though I spend another 25 minutes dicking around in 3D, or something thereabouts. So if we pause that guy there, and you guys can't see the little slider bar, we still have another 6 minutes in this time lapse. But if we switch, not a whole lot's really changed between the two, right? That's where it was after a couple of 10, 15 minutes in 3D, and then, 15 minutes later, I moved some things just a little bit. So that we're not going to watch the rest, because it's literally just me like moving points, little tiny bits. There's nothing of value there. I should have stopped or gone further. So let's go. Whoops. Nope. There we go. Let's go back to 3D. So I have. When I'm looking at this image, and kind of what I had in my head when I was setting this up was I had two different ideas for how this image would feel. And one is kind of taking these existing colors, and right now it has a little bit like of a greenish feel to it, and almost a little bit, I guess sickly is maybe the right word, or what I'm thinking of. And I feel like we can either play that up, or the other idea, and I kind of grabbed a couple of skies initially. Found them, and then I closed the Explorer window. Way to go, Mike. Going into like this kind of like red and violet, orange and violet kind of like dusky mood, which would be a big change for this, which I think would be a good exercise. And so what I'm thinking I'm going to do is that before I start painting this image, doing basically like 2 quick paintovers of it to say like, I'm still not sure on the direction I'm supposed to be pushing. That type of indecision's never a good thing, and it should be handled in and of itself. So we're going to do that. That's the idea. Oops. I need to just disable that button. I never use it. Michaela, good to see you. Thank you for being here. Let's do. Let's purchase a little bit more as a paint over. And so I think I really like this one. I really like that one for the color and the tones, and I kind of like this one for the cloud shape. So let's pull them both in. And doop, 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 doop. And what we're going to do is we're going to approach this with the idea that everything that I'm doing right now is not intended to like actually be painting work. It's going to be, I'm trying to find, hopefully, the direction that I want to follow. And this should be, I'm not sure that it's going to be a quick process for me, but the thought would be is that, okay, so we have this idea, we could have done this in 3D, and maybe the end result is that I should have actually done this in 3D. These clouds feel a bit higher off the horizon. And maybe that is where time would be well spent in 3D, is like testing out some skies very quickly, some mood, adjusting the lighting. Maybe that's what I needed to do. I don't know. But we're going to see if this is a place that I can do this in 3D. And we'll see if the cheatiest way to match color works here, which I don't really think it's going to, because it's a pretty drastic change. But we might as well try. And what is that? 425. Okay, oops, wrong layer. Untitled. Skies, 425. That looks just funny. That's not I didn't expect this to work. I did not expect this result. Okay, so let's just kind of do some like very, very rough color correction for this guy. And so we're going to need, let's move all of them quickly this way into kind of some bluish purples. Let's pull the highlights way, way down. Something like that. And then let us grab, before we pull that down actually, I'm going to grab a luminosity mask. To quickly, hopefully just grab the, what color is that? That's like an orange, super saturated. Let's quickly adjust this guy. Just to kind of, I'm trying to just grab some of the highlights so that we don't have to paint all of them in, and then we're going to paint things in a second. Something like that, maybe. Not sure if that'll help or not. And then let's see what color this actually is. We're not far off. Somewhere in there. Obviously not as saturated, maybe a little bit brighter. And maybe we just tone that down a bit. Okay, so that's like a very quick, like rough in. They don't match exactly, but that's okay. For this first sketch, which we're going to put all in a group, and we're going to call this Dusk. Stay a little bit organized here. Yeah, Claudio. Color correcting. I don't put a lot of photographic assets in. Early in my career, especially in my D-Box days, I did a lot of people, so I did a lot of time color correcting photographs to images, and we did a decent amount of editorial stuff, taking stuff that was shot in the studio and then putting them into renderings and backplates and all kinds of fun. And I don't do nearly as much of it anymore. But this kind of gets us at least into a world where, well, basically we're not looking at this, which, you know, the values are kind of there. Let's take a look at the values. The values sit in, right? So at least we have like the right tones in this. Okay. So going back, and I think I'm going to try and do this in color, and I'm going to try and do it. I do think that the composition is off. And I think what I want is a lower horizon. I feel like something like that works a little bit better. I want two things to happen here. I like this. I feel like I got too much space going on in this guy. Oops. Other lasso. All right, one of the things that I think was good, particularly in the last image that we finished, my puppy's mad at something. One of the things that was good as far as like I learned something from in the image that had like the lone building and kind of the brooding sky and the weird cliffy stalactite things or stalagmite type kind of towers, rock towers on the right, is after I painted it live, I ended up basically unpainting everything, removing pretty much all the detail from the rendering and then building that painting back up, which I probably, like I learned something about my process in that. But I also think that was a good little confidence booster in the sense of like, okay, even though we have a rendering, let's not keep any of it as precious, right? None of that's precious. Let's continue to like, let's feel free to, even though this isn't a paint over, let's still treat the beginning of it as one. Let's get everything in the right place before we start spending time on it. Let's get all of the kind of like color direction, lighting direction ideas kind of figured out here, while it's still super quick to fix things, right? Yeah, that's the idea anyways. And like I liked before when this kind of came back a little bit, let's just kind of do some scribbles. I like this kind of like Z shape that the water makes. The water should maybe have a slightly different color. You can just do all this like super roughly, knowing that we're gonna end up painting all this over at some point or another. So let's not, get worried about it. The other thing that I've kind of been like vaguely thinking about, is obviously I'm trying to figure something out. Part of figuring that out is kind of working through, maybe like that. Let's desaturate it. I'm wondering if it wasn't for you guys being in the chat and keeping me honest, I wonder how much if I would have like given up and put this back on the shelf of like, you can probably find videos of me talking from like years ago saying that I wanted to learn how to be a speed painter or do speed painting at very least. I wonder if I would have been like, oh, that's cool, but I'm running into some problems. Pushing through them in one way or another is so important. So I think that you guys are definitely part of it, and I thank you for that. Claudio, can I suggest a good color matching tutorial? None off the top of my head. And I think the main reason being that when I was learning it was back in like 2010. And there were probably good tutorials then, but it was before I really sought out that kind of stuff. And so I learned most of it just from trial and error, and a couple of like really talented artists at D-Box that took the time to teach me how they do it and kind of what they're looking for. I'm sure that there are some good ones. I would probably there's that channel like Pix Imperfect, I think, that does like a lot of like quick like 15-minute Photoshop tutorials, and it's like largely towards like a lot of it. The ones that I've seen are like photo bashing, how to change the color of a sky or how to put a new sky in and all that kind of stuff. And he tends to plan his things and be pretty clear about why he's doing whatever he's doing. So that's probably a good place to start. The potentially bad news I have for that is that I think the reason that color matching is hard, at least why I found it difficult and still do to some degree, is that you don't you don't really get the opportunity, or it's not the technical, excuse me. Replace that poor excuse for a sentence. The reason that it's hard is that the technical parts of it, like adding some green into the shadows, lifting the blacks, making sure that the whites match the other whites in the scene, how you do that's not that difficult. The technical parts of Photoshop are not hard to do. What does get a little bit harder is being able to like visually see that, oh, this is what I need to have happen here. That is definitely a bit harder. And so that's the development of your eye. And I don't know of any way that you can like train your eye besides doing it, looking at your own work really critically, continuing to work on it until it finally clicks, and then noticing what it is that you missed and trying not to miss that next time. And over time, your eye just gets more sensitive to, oh, the blacks here don't match. Like, I can say that my process typically for integrating photos into a rendering is first matching blacks and whites, right? So that the highlights are the right amount of brightness and the blacks are the right amount of black. And so a lot of times I will do that just looking at black and white, right? Like our eye gets tricked into confusing saturation for brightness often. And so I'll just switch, either put a hue saturation layer at the top, mix the blacks and whites together. And once that's going, then start working on the color and then the saturation. That's generally the like rough process that I work through, but it kind of varies every time. If the values aren't right, the colors won't matter. If the values are right and the colors are wrong, or the temperature and color balance is wrong, that's another one. So there's like a ton of little like tips and tricks as far as technically how to do those types of things. I don't think that there are a ton of ways to learn to develop that like visual sensitivity, other than just doing it a whole lot. As I'm moving this, I'm also telling myself that I shouldn't be, and I'm gonna follow my gut there. My gut is I want to lighten some of these clouds up. I don't like how dark they are, and my gut is telling me that creating a mask for it is not the right answer. So I'm just gonna take this color and I'm gonna kind of paint out them entirely. I do this a lot, right? Just kind of like very heavy-handed. I know I want to get rid of these clouds as far as their contrast goes, not necessarily their existence. And so one of the things that I've always found to be the easiest way to do that is just paint them out with the surrounding colors, right? Because the way to get them to sit into the background is always going to be to reduce their contrast. So we're going to quickly reduce their contrast. We're going to take that off there, just quick little deletes. Let's go back to color, and then we're just going to do, right? Just so those clouds sit further back behind that building, right? And still trying to, as much as I can, keep my brain in a, we're thinking about speed painting here. We're thinking about figuring out if this is the direction that I want to pursue. And even though I actually quite optimistic about like these quick changes, right, from this to this, and it took us a couple of minutes, I'm not entirely sure how long, I do like the way that this is going, but as a means to avoid the problems that we've been running into the past, I am at very least going to quickly do the same thing for the other idea, and see how that works out, right? Because we need to get some blues down into this part of the water, some darker blues into this part of the water. And maybe we need some like lights sitting up over here, right? So that I want this to feel closer than this guy. So I'm just gonna lightly brush in some lighter colors into this section. All right, and there's probably a bit too much there, but that's okay. That's the idea. Work quickly, but with intent, right? I'm not just trying to rough this up as I was in the past. I am actually trying to like establish a direction for this. I don't like that little rock wherever that guy came from. We're gonna paint him out. Put a couple highlights there. colors on that rock are weird. We'll deal with them later. Maybe this guy just gets the hint of a little bit of light on it. Same with this one. Maybe this wraps just a little bit. Okay, so that I'm looking at and I'm seeing, and here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking this could be cool, I think. That's my gut feeling. I'm more excited about this already than I am in this that has like a total of what? An hour and a half of painting into it? Something like that, somewhere in that vicinity. I think even though it's just like a little mental switch, I feel like it's an important one for me. Let's test it. Let's go back to the original guy here. And this one we're going to call Sickly. I'm thinking of this as Sickly. I want to play up, I think, the greens in this. I want it to be saturated. We're going to want some greens. I'm thinking of this as like in like that like kind of like swamp thing and murky green ominous kind of vibe. And so I want a little bit of texture already in the clouds as like a compositional part, framing things down. And I know where a sky exists. I say that, and then this will bite me in the ass. Stormy, it's called like BW Clouds. I use it all the time. I love this one. Put something like this in there. Super stormy, kind of cool. What am I looking for? Flip horizontal. Do I want it? I'm not sure which way I want to have the light coming from in this one yet. So we're just going to go ahead and mask it. Set that to multiply. Invert that mask. Okay, we're going to turn that down just a little bit. Just so that we have some texture up there, and I'm not going to worry too much about the color of it just yet. Compositionally, I think regardless of how I'm thinking about it, I like coming down here. Is that in that group? No. I think I like that regardless. So we need to move that, and we need to move that. Can we do? I don't know if I can move a mask and a layer at the same time. Let's see. No, I cannot. That's okay. That is okay. This is a sketch mic. That's like the thing I have to keep telling myself. This is a sketch. The answer is always going to be move quickly. Right? So we're going to move this to where I like the foreground and do just the same exact thing we did last time. Just pull that down just a little bit more, and actually we can go like this. Somewhere in there. Let's paint out some of this. I find, even though like these lines feel like a detail visually because it's a hard line in an otherwise soft part of the image, it draws attention, right? And I'm trying to think of this on as big of a level as possible. I'm not paying attention to comments at all today. Battling my inner golem. Well, the guy doesn't leave, so I got to deal with him one way or another, right? But in almost every part of my life, I don't like things that are precious. Possessions, artwork, processes. I'm against preciousness. Yeah, Pixel Perfect has a lot of like really good like little like, oh, I never thought of using it that way. From a technical level, he's awesome. From a creative level, I don't love all of his stuff. He does like a lot of things that I'm like, ooh, I don't like how that looks. But that's subjective, right, as to how I like things, and definitely not the end all be all for someone that knows his way around Photoshop. I have this idea in my head of like actual green fog, and I don't know if that's stupid or not. What's the overall palette that I'm looking for here? It's kind of greenish, a little bit of variation. It's starting to feel sickly. It's a little bit dark, but that's okay. We're going to go a little bit lighter here in a moment. And I'm a little scatterbrained today. Milan, that is a really good suggestion as well. Flern definitely similar, like really good tips and tricks of how to manipulate things. Very, very good. Oleg, good to see you, buddy. Daniel, good to see you as well. Com, is that COM? Greetings to Mexico as well. Good to see you, buddy. Thank you for coming. Do I use any composition grids or rule of thirds or any of those? Interesting you should ask. And I only say interesting because I do the workshop that I teach every year over in Venice at Maddie, which I absolutely adore that they keep bringing me back, and I have a great time when I'm there, and I'm blown away by some of the students' work. It's awesome. Is ostensibly on composition. Is like the main theme. We use Kit Bash. We work on ways to work on composition, and I basically started by talking about like the rule of thirds, which is like the main rule of composition that most people talk about. And I think it's garbage. Not because I don't think it's sometimes very useful. Sometimes it is, and especially like in our phones or even right, the crop tool brings up the rule of thirds as one of the options. Right, there's a whole bunch of rules. Where are they? Grid, a whole bunch of things. The problem is that for all of those rules of composition, I could easily find you an example that does the exact thing that rule says not to do. And that's an amazing composition. This guy's pretty centered on the rule of thirds, right? And so this initial composition would have benefited by me paying attention to the rule of thirds in this particular case. My problem is that it's prescriptive, and it's prescriptive missing the one like most important part about composition in my book, which is that composition is meant to serve a purpose. And it might be to define a mood, to give, if you're looking at architecture, how you position a camera has a great effect on whether this is an over imposing, strong, formal building. Like look at Taj Mahal in India. It's almost always focused right down that pool, so that it's a one point, everything's straight, symmetrical. There's a sense of authority that comes from that composition. That if you were to move off to the side and do that with a dynamic composition, more dynamic, quote unquote, 2-point position, you would lose a little bit of that like formal authority. Neither one's right or wrong. It depends what you're trying to communicate. I think better rules of composition, if there's going to be any, is thinking that your image should have like, no. As soon as I said that, I'm thinking of like having like a foreground, a midground, a background, or a mix of large, medium, and small shapes. Those tend to be pretty good like guidelines, but again, there's really cool, very, very flat images that are just like repetitive windows that have a beautiful thing. It's all just to say that I think that there's a lot of cool compositions potentially that don't follow rules that look amazing. And I think as a result of that, thinking of any of those things as anything besides suggestions, especially if you're stuck looking at those rules, can be really, really helpful. But I don't know that I think that they're particularly helpful thinking of them as like a guide initially. If the composition isn't working as a composition, they're worth thinking about. But I don't think that you should look at them as like, I use the rule of thirds in my composition. Sometimes, sure, absolutely. There's a reason why like it's on our phones when you take a picture. But I don't think it's a great. I don't think it's a productive way to think about composition. That makes sense at all, Claudio? whenever I'm like answering those questions, which thank you for the question. Love having something to talk about that I don't have to come up with. Um, whenever I'm doing answering them and also working, I'm only like half paying attention to either, and as a result, like I'm not entirely sure what I just said. Which I guess, depending on your outlook on such things, could make that a more honest answer or just one that didn't make any sense. And could very well be both. Or you could just disagree with what I said, which is also fine. But yes, those are my overarching ideas on composition. Okay, this one's getting very like toxic sci-fi world-ish, which I don't hate. Gotta be honest. I don't think I love either. I'm not sure that I'm ready to make a decision between the two. Jay, what's going on, my friend? Good to see you, buddy. No worries about being late. This is, you do everything you can do to get through the day at this point. Luca, this isn't a drinking game already? I mean, essentially, it's an excuse for us to drink together and talk about art, correct? I appreciate you being here. And yeah, I think it should be a drinking game. Drink every time Mike forgets to put tunes on. Well, that means you need to have a beer every single time. And can you guys see the bottom of... You guys can't see the bottom of my taskbar in that crop. I opened it up, and I just, forgot about it. Completely forgot about it. Like I said before, we are going to have a couple options besides Jay in the near future. But right now, we're listening to more Sinuous. Hopefully you guys can hear that. My mixing abilities are pretty gone. So, there you go. I think the second rule should be, once I put music on, you have to have a drink by the way. Adam, good to have you. Thank you for being here. And Claudio, I absolutely agree. When you're just starting and trying to learn composition, there's a reason that these things are quote-unquote rules, right? Absolutely there are. But so learning them isn't a bad idea, but holding on to them as though there's some divine actual rule, definitely not the case. Can I stop saying such is life? Well, now I'm going to start saying it. I didn't expect that answer. Oh, well, there you go. Little surprise. I'm glad that you guys are trying to make this into a drinking game. I can't tell you how much my insides are smiling about that right now. Thank you. Jay, this is still from heavy metal. We're just kind of on a heavy metal kick right now. What do you guys think? Do we go nice and pleasant stream at dusk? Or do we go sickly toxic fog? I like both. That's a step in the right direction. I think that was a well-used 30 minutes of drawing, maybe, whatever that might be. But now I've given myself two options, of which I don't have a way to solve which one I like more. Could just go with gut. I don't really have a story in the background for this little image. Love the warm. I mean, this one's technically warm, but I'm assuming you're meaning the dusk, which is technically a cooler image in color. But that's kind of my hunch too. I like the idea of doing like this kind of like sickly fog one. But maybe not for this one. Maybe we'll save that kind of idea of doing a sickly fog, swampy, toxic thing later, and maybe we try to paint this. I also think that this one is going to be turned into mostly painting like a monochromatic image or something close to a monochromatic image, which, don't get me wrong, I love black and white. I love paintings that like sit pretty close on like a hue spectrum to itself as well. But I'm more comfortable with that, and this I look at and I'm like, I'm less comfortable painting in this kind of complementary color scheme that's a little less subtle in color, or not subtle, but less monochromatic, right? This is a further departure from what I'm used to or comfortable with, so I think we're going to move forward with this guy. Thank you for the votes. You helped make a decision for me. Appreciate it. The green one is cleaner visually. I agree with you on that. I mean, it's messy texture-wise, but compositionally, it's cleaner. The sky is more subdued, but maybe we try to bring some of those elements into it. One of the nice things about painting foggy, moody images is that it does tend to stay very, very clean. I think I'm gonna go with dusk. I think this one feels like more of a challenge to me. This one, I feel like I know what I would paint next. I know what I would work on, and I can already see exactly where that's ending. This one, I have an idea of where I want it to end, but I don't know exactly how I'm going to get there. And I'm more intimidated by trying to paint this one. So we're going to go with the one I'm more scared of. Milan, we might do some happy trees. No, well, we could maybe put some trees into this. We'll see. Okay. So we're going to put Sickly away. We're going to keep Dusk. And we're going to save. Because we should save. And I didn't save before this, which I usually do. Okay. Alright, do we paint a little bit? Yeah, we got like 10 more minutes. Let's do some painting. It's weird. It seems like such a little, like, obvious thing of a difference of how we're starting this from the last one. But oftentimes it's the little things that get you. I have an idea. I have an idea of what I want this to feel like color-wise. Still keeping like the general blue or violet to kind of orangey, pinkish red. But I have a vague picture in my head that I'm gonna try and get this to, at least in the end, maybe not immediately. Like, yeah, right now I don't really know quite what I'm supposed to be doing. Which is a bit of a problem, but I'm just going to continue doing stuff. A, because you guys are watching, and B, because sometimes the solution is just to start doing. Right? Especially when you're intimidated, right? Like, take the fear away. So let's start doodling. Alright, so we're going to have some bright little highlights in here. The values are already, I'm pretty happy with the values. The clouds are a little bit dark. I do want the sky up at the top to get darker. We're just going to kind of work. I feel like this has been a successful day. Yeah, no, Adam, I do not at all disagree with you on that. But I think that we might be able to get some of the things that we like about this, right? I like the simplicity. I don't necessarily like the complexity of this, but let's see if we can't make it work anyways. I think we're going to. I think we can get somewhere, at least move it in that direction. We'll see. Trying to think if there's anything else I wanted to say. I try to think of at least some things before these things happen. But, you know, an hour is a long time to be talking. At least for me. I feel like doing these questions my claim as to me being an introvert. I still think I am. But I've also been known to have an opinion or two, as they say. Okay, so let's think big. I can feel myself already like going in and noodling. Let's think, what are the big things that need to change here? I definitely don't like this, I don't like the profile, or not so much the profile of this piece, but I don't like the edges of this foreground element. So let's see if we can't get that worked out. We're gonna go nice and small. One of the nice things about going small is you get to ignore basically everything except for the big shapes, right? And I think that this actually needs to come down a bit. Being able to see too much definitely like hinders your ability to like change big things. I have found. I shouldn't say you in that situation. I should say me. For me, it has a huge effect on me. This I want to. Do I want that to go backwards or forwards? Let's try. Jay, this one definitely has a little bit of Utopia vibes in it, minus added some details into it. I have said it multiple times. I'm pretty sure that this is my favorite kit from Kit Bash. I was still the head of 3D at the time that this kit was concepted out. Sebastian Luca did the concept for this, and he just killed the concept drawings. Just absolutely beautiful. And Jacob Vondra modeled it. He was just starting modeling it when Kit Bash and I parted ways. So I didn't get to watch the whole development of the actual kit in 3D. But could not be happier with how it turned out, I think. And then textures were done by Alexi HR Design, who I think also did an amazing job. Stylistically, it's got some like Ian McHugh, Levius Woods vibes that they're two of my absolute heroes. Levius Woods from architecture, Ian McHugh from concept art. And it makes me very, very happy that we now have a kit that kind of speaks a similar language to some of their work. It's the best. If you haven't checked it out, check it out. It might still be on sale. Not entirely sure. I think this cloud needs to go. Right, I think especially with like these types of like heavy cloud, or they're kind of light and airy clouds, but they're heavy visually, which I like. I like that like dark, the sun's not hitting all of the clouds, or the bright light on the horizon's not hitting all of the clouds. I really like that. But since they're visually heavy, I think we want to make sure, or at least I want to make sure that that they are working with the composition and not hurting it. And I think one of the problems is all this stuff in here. Right, we want to keep that silhouette like nice and clean. We kind of have an image that's pulling us back this way. we can use clouds to kind of enhance like the natural vignette that I'm sure I'll put in it more towards the end. But yeah, thinking that like you want all your like major shapes working together. And obviously when we put the sky in, we just kind of dropped it in. We didn't manipulate it in any way. But I think that we can use it. To kind of keep the eye focused on our guy down there. And tone these ones all down just a bit. We're done on time. We're getting a couple more minutes. What little highlights? I feel like as a sketch, we got a decent start here. I like the other nice thing. So like the other thing I'm like thinking about and not voicing because I'm not sure where I stand on it just yet. Like right now, so one of the things that I'm really thinking about is should I have done this in 3D? As far as like finding like a mood and color and kind of like visual idea. And I think I like that I didn't, specifically because I didn't have one to start with. So I think if I had had this idea when I was like sketching the scene out, that it would be worthwhile to like play around in 3D a little bit and kind of get like a closer 3D base. Because it wouldn't take that much more time. But because I didn't have that, the fact that we changed the composition really quickly in 2D, right? Moved a few things around. That didn't take long. Took like a minute. We did it twice. The fact that we did those things, and then kind of quickly, very roughly match the color together, it accomplished that initial step of messing up the rendering, right? So that it doesn't feel so kind of sacrilegious to be painting over top of it messily, which is, I think is, at least for me, is very important right now. But did it with more intent than just, hey, let's rough up the canvas, so to speak. I think I liked that. And what, in the first like 15-20 minutes we kind of got two different ideas of directions we could take this, which I guess I kind of probably could have done just as quickly in 3D. So maybe that's not quite the right answer. That's what I'm thinking about in my head. Get a little atmosphere into this. Soften up some of these kind of tones. I'm happy about the direction that this is heading. I think I've said that a couple of times. Such is life, as they say. Pedro, what's going on, buddy? Good to see you, my friend. Good to see you. As it turns out, I have the link to your YouTube channel in the comments of this because you guys rock. And it's mixed in with like a bunch of the painting channels that I really like. or at least as of recently have really liked. And I know a lot of the people that listen are ArcViz folks. And if you're looking for someone that uses like not a more controlled, well done version of what I'm doing here, look at Pedro's videos. They do some awesome like ArcViz matte painting stuff and paintover stuff as an ideation, but also an execution tool. And the videos are super awesome. But I'm glad to see you stopping by. Thanks, bud. We're just about wrapping this one up. We started with this guy. First we tried this, liked this, tried this other idea I had, liked some things about it, not everything. And then right now we're at this. I think we're gonna leave this here, folks. Not as a painting, but for the day. Whoa. Guys, I hope everyone's doing well. I thank you all for coming and hanging out for an hour or so with me. I hope you're being safe, staying at home, staying positive, all of that fun stuff. But more importantly than anything else, at least in my book, is finding a way to stay optimistic and positive with everything going on right now. For me, you're kind of looking at it. This helps me stay focused on the things that I like. And so I thank you guys very, very much for being here, for keeping me motivated, keeping me honest, and keeping me trying to improve. Now that I look at it again, I need to deal with those. There's too many lines in the sky now. That needs to be softened. But, so we have a next thing to do once we work on it. Guys, thanks so much for hanging out. I very much appreciate it. Tomorrow is Thursday. Tomorrow is Thursday, so Friday is going to be paint over day. If you guys want me to paint over anything that you guys are working on, whether it be a sketch, a raw render, a test render, a finished render, I would love to do it. I think that's really good practice for me, and I hope that there's some value in it for you guys as well. Send that to mike@droki.com, and I will get to it as soon as I can. I'm just trying to work through them in order. Until next time, be well, guys. Tell someone you love them today. And yeah, same time tomorrow. Thank you, guys. Awkward time. Ready? Who's ready for some beeps and boops? We got one beep, and then this one, I'm not even going to say it. I'm just going to, cheers.